Welcome to the ADNA Presents. This is Roy Samuelson. Today we have Mike Hess joining us. He is founder and executive director of Blind Institute of Technology. And after 2 decades of leading multi-million-dollar tech projects, Mike founded the Blind Institute of Technology to break barriers for blind and visually impaired professionals. And his mission is to prove that disability is an asset, not a limitation in the workspace. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Thanks so much for having me, Roy. Truly appreciate this and looking forward to the conversation today.
Let's jump right in with the typical question that I love to start with, what you love about audio description.
What I love is this is such a apropos question from this weekend here in the Denver metro area. Memorial Day weekend, we had just a monsoon type weekend. We had on Sunday of the long weekend, Roy, we actually broke a record of moisture, like a 50-year one day, the whole family, kids, grandkids, my wife, like we all went to see a movie on a rainy Saturday afternoon. The grand opening of the latest Mission Impossible movie was out. And I say this because I was there as a blind consumer, right? Paying to go see this movie because of the audio description. Audio description expands market share. It doesn't contract it, right? I'll only watch movies if there's audio description. We all know the statistics around this. The market share for people with disabilities is not a small market share. Globally, it's in the trillions. For movie makers, sitcoms, whatever it is, people putting out digital content out there, it only expands the market share because of audio description.
I love this pivot to the market share. There seems to be some assumptions that are made by both sighted and blind individuals on the sense of why audio description matters. And what I'm hearing you address in that market share aspect is the win-win here. If we look at the corporations that are benefiting from blind consumers, literally you and your family this weekend for that particular showing, there's a sense of loyalty there. And that is, there's a bottom line element to it, but that also reflects back and it can also expand more opportunities. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Without a doubt, like it's because it's interesting. I feel like adding audio description is like the curb cut effect that's happening because we all know curb cuts, they're put in because of the motor skills impaired community, i.e. the wheelchair community. And yet, right, bicyclists, moms with strollers, so many people use curb cuts. It's not just the people with disabilities community. And within the audio description, I'd like individuals who now know about audio description, like they like to have it on because you actually get the idea like a picture's worth 1,000 words. And yet you have these marketing, communication, audio description professionals, right? And that's what it is. They're professionals that you don't need 1,000 words, but boy, keywords can really augment the experience. Right. And it's no different than having closed captioning on in airports and in loud restaurants, in bars and that sort of thing. CC is on all the time now. And I know so many moviegoers now that they know about audio description, they're keeping them on. So it's, again, that curb cut effect, audio description, it augments the experience, period.
I love it. And that augmented experience, I think, reflects back to, like you said, about the curb cut effect and access. And let's pivot back from audio description specifically to BIT, that when it comes to the work that you're doing, what does access mean to you in the sense of your business?
Access, it's why we're around. And we're a workforce development shop. Everything that we do is around workforce development. And what separates BIT from literally any other organization out there, we know this because of our partnership with Salesforce. So we create truly accessible educational experiences to include the totally blind community. And a lot of workforce development shops that are out there, we're it globally. And we know this because Salesforce has looked for organizations similar to us around the globe, right? However, Blind Institute of Technology, BIT, like we're out there making sure that individuals who are blind, low vision, people who are deaf, hard of hearing, people who are motor skills impaired include paraplegic, quadriplegic, neurodiverse to include ADHD, other print disabilities like dyslexic. We want to make sure that technical certification tracks are absolutely accessible to them. And we do that by making sure we do a run through with all the content that we deliver. And we're a very, call it Gettysburg Address type model here. Like it's a by for of the people. So 100% of our instructors come from the disability community, Roy. So therefore, we ensure that individuals have access to the technical content that leads to these technical certifications, which are absolutely future proofed. So, by ensuring that all of our content is completely accessible, it ensures that people with disabilities absolutely have a pathway within tech careers.
When it comes to that Gettysburg, by the people, for the people, I just had a conversation earlier today about the soft skills that when it came to my own personal education, I'm a sighted person, and yet also in my education, it was read a book, take a test, get a grade.
Right.
And the biggest impact that I had on my career was when I actually had a job, when I actually went to experience I'm not going to call it an internship, but it essentially was, where I learned not only how to show up on time, how to deal with interpersonal communications, the other things that aren't taught in the school book. That I can't help but think that when you focus on accessible education, that when it's being taught by people who are blind, that those soft skills come into play. Maybe you could give like a general overview when it comes to the educational aspect of that.
Sure. And actually, so I've been in workforce development for a long time. I was appointed by former Governor Hickenlooper, now State Senator Hickenlooper here in the great state of Colorado. Oh my gosh, probably 6, 8 years ago to the Colorado Workforce Development Council. So I've been legitimately at a high level delivering workforce development services programming for a long time and learning from true workforce development professionals across the country and really globally because of the seminars and conferences I would go to within the space at the literally at the payment of the state of Colorado. Okay. So and this is the first thing that is different that we BIT, we don't call them soft skills. We call them the industry standard of workforce development, which is essential skills. And I think you'll appreciate this just based on what you were sharing, Roy, is because it's your technical skills that'll basically get your foot in the door. But the essential skills, right? What used to be called soft skills, they're essential skills that actually projects the trajectory of your career, right? It's not just like it's soft skills. We shouldn't focus on them. Oh, no, they are equally important for your trajectory. And so we absolutely at BIT, like we ensure that we have all these wraparound services to help professionals with disabilities because many times, like our apprenticeship program is the first time that they're going to dip their toe into professional ponds, right? And yes, the technical content and understanding is critical. It's crucial. Like it's absolutely critical to get that your foot in the door. However, we want to ensure that once they're there, yes, do they know how to communicate effectively? Do they know like some of the do's and don'ts around written communication, verbal communication? So we make sure that our wraparound services are there to address those critical skills that we call essential skills.
Well, thank you for that. It's an easy pivot now to go essential. And I love that focuses on the communication. When it comes to communication, let's go back a little bit to that Colorado Workforce Council that I'd imagine there were some assumed and unnecessary barriers that a lot of people may have had about the work that you do, that there were a blind person can't do this, or those assumptions that are astronomically not based in fact. Did you find that there were certain messages from your experience in working with the Colorado workforce that seemed to make that leap to be able to help people understand, oh, yeah, this is an unnecessary barrier. We don't need this barrier anymore.
So lots of what I call them learning opportunity or educational opportunities. Way too often we'll talk about decks, right? So PDFs, they're done in Adobe, all that good stuff. And this totally leads back to audio description. But let's start with just making sure that communication, i.e. decks, so much of it is just done in decks, right? Are those that and there's charts and there's graphs, and sometimes there's just a picture. And sometimes the authors are just, we're going to use this picture because again, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Did they even use alt text? Because if they didn't use alt text, you're probably really accurately saying there's clearly no audio description. And so these educational moments in those professional settings were abundant, right? And they are abundant. And that's why hell, just like audio description, like we tell folks all the time, accessible digital content is not difficult. It's intentional. Let me say that
Mm.
again. Accessible digital content is not difficult. It's just intentional, right? And when that comes from starting with alt tags or descriptions within the decks and or digital video content to then the audio description, because that's what we're so the thing that we're now starting to do within our decks, because we deliver presentations to organizations at conferences all the time. So we not only do we make sure that the presentations are accessible via alt text and all that sort of thing when folks ask for our decks, but we're actually embedding audio description into our decks because it's all intentional. So it's the whole we eat our own cooking, a buy for of the people, right? So we eat our own cooking here.
Oh, that's great. I can't help but think that intentionality when it comes to access. That I love how you said that, and I'm so glad you repeated it. It's not difficult; it's intentional. One of the things that we focus here on this podcast is building awareness of the various roles within audio description. I can't help but think that the work that you're doing in building that intentional awareness is going beyond what is assumed access to be. In other words, let me ask a question to make this clearer. How do you go beyond checking the accessibility box? What are some things that you could share with our audience that you find have been incredibly impactful in going past just that, okay, we did it. We did access.
I saw this question on preparing for this podcast, Roy, and I love this question because just like I say, it's not difficult, it's intentional. So when you think of that intentional word, so the same thing happens when you're talking about the hiring process. So if you don't want to just check a box, I stopped asking leaders, it doesn't matter the C-level leadership role. So CEO, CIO, CTO, CFO, COO, doesn't matter the C-suite role. Like I stopped asking the question, how many blind people do you have working for you anyway? Because it's always an uncomfortable silence, or it's the obligatory, oh, we have this one. Don't talk to me about tokenism. That's actually why I left my six-figure career, is because of tokenism, right? The idea with hiring, it's got to be intentional too. So if you want to get out of just checking a box, makes people with disabilities greatest untapped human potential on the planet. Like we can prove this out statistically. We could totally prove this out, Roy. And yet, like the unemployment numbers within my community, not just the blind, low vision, I'm talking about people with disabilities, right? Pan disability, the people with disabilities community, like the unemployment rates, like Department of Labor, the people with disabilities are more than 2 times likely to be unemployed versus our fully able-bodied peers. Okay, in some communities within disability community, like the blind, low vision, there's a 70 to 80% underemployment. Within the neurodiverse community, there's a 80 to 90% or underemployment, right? So numbers are staggering, and it can absolutely prove out that we're the greatest untapped human potential on the planet, right? And so if you don't want to check a box with access, you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional about accessible content. And that's from, again, alt tags to making sure that your websites, like all of the WCAG, and then within your digital video content, it's making sure that the AD is there where your hiring practices. If you don't want to just check a box, make sure that this amazing community is actually part of your workforce. The Accenture Disability Equality Index report absolutely proves this out, that if organizations that are intentional about recruiting and retaining talent from the people with disabilities community, you have a 28% higher revenue than your peers. You have 2 times higher net operating income. Like this is not like the business case is there. It's solid. So it's just about being intentional, right? And getting a little curious, sometimes getting a little uncomfortable, because and I truly believe that's the reason why people are just checking the boxes, because they are just a little bit uncomfortable around the conversation around disability, which therefore they're not intentional about hiring us, period.
I see that connection when it comes to the uncomfortability, that sense of, oh, let's avoid something that could cause whatever business downfall that they're imagining in their C-suite brains here. That your focus throughout this conversation and also in your intent on the website has been so clear that it is going towards something good, that you've said the greatest untapped resource. Forgive me if I've misquoted you, but this, I was scribbling so fast I couldn't stop. It's
You're good. You're good.
these
Yep.
statistically proven elements. And even when you said about a learning opportunity, that this is all very focused towards going towards something, not avoiding something. And I think in that context, there's got to be some victories that you've celebrated in that sense of going towards something, that you've got a goal that you're really proud that you accomplished in your organization. If there's something that we haven't discussed yet, could you name an example of maybe a victory that your organization's really proud of?
I appreciate that. And we can go over just our partnership with Salesforce. Third largest software company in the world. We are their official training provider for people with disabilities. That's a big deal. They have the largest AI conference in the world. They call it Dreamforce. They literally take over San Francisco for a week. It's going to be in October of this year. Their keynote address is always done by their CEO, Mark Benioff. Tens of thousands of people are there. It's live streamed to millions of people. In September of 2023, we were awarded the very highly coveted Trailblazer Award, which is only given to individuals or organizations that are making a difference within the Salesforce ecosystem globally. Salesforce literally put accessibility, disability, and employment on the largest stage in history, which is super cool. And since then, our training has completely expanded, and we've now been able to get totally blind people and other people with disabilities on 4 continents certified within the Salesforce ecosystem and employed on 4 continents. So those are the things that I'm most proud of. Is it's to me, it's great the marketing that comes from Salesforce. That's what we use it for. But ultimately, it has to come down to results. And we are, even though we're a nonprofit, I'm not going to talk to you about, oh, we raised X amount of dollars. If we're
Yeah.
not making an impact within the professionals with disabilities community, I don't want to talk about it.
Wow. And the impact of that Trailblazer Award, it's literally anti-tokenism. I don't want to stay focused on the double negative there, but the, I, let's pivot just a little bit and go off on this tangent that you have the results to prove it, both from these awards and being the official training provider. I'm curious about the steps before you had those results. There's got to be some storytelling that sold people into the buy-in. There's got to be some elements of you being in a room, maybe not necessarily having those statistics because you literally created them by those opportunities. What was, if you could look back at the earlier days when you left your high figure income job and branched off, can you recall some of the steps that you took to get those stories told, to get that buy-in?
We're doing the Wayback Machine now, but
Is that two-way back?
because a whole lot of nonprofits, I'm not kidding you, have come up to us and they're like, we want to have that designation. We want to have that partnership with Salesforce. And I'm like, you know what? I get it because you get to see these interviews. Like we get invited to a lot of things via Salesforce. But before all that happened, we were very intentional. We were the first organization in the country, and I dare say on the planet, without any funding, without any formal relationship with Salesforce, we, BIT, committed to put a pilot program together within workforce development. We put 6 blind, low vision, and 1 neurodivergent individual through the Salesforce admin certification. And we funded everything. But because we started as a nonprofit staffing agency, we got folks certified, then we got them placed. Then we shared all those results with our friends over at Salesforce that we didn't have yet that created this. They're like, oh, this organization, we weren't going to them with our handout saying, hey, we're willing to do
Yes.
this if you fund us X, Y, and Z. We did this on our own. And we did that for 4 years before Salesforce said there was a whole bunch of timing that took place. The reason why the formalizing of us becoming the official training provider took place. But we were committed to doing this for 4 straight years and just working with them. They were like, oh, these guys are serious. Oh, they're not going away. Oh, these guys are legit. It took all of that, but we were very intentional and we were very committed to making this all work before the formalizing. And then they came to us because we're a nonprofit. They're like, hey, the first donation that they gave to us was $50K back in 2020 but this was, again, 4 years of us fully committing and us completely funding everything. And then they were like, yeah, you guys are not going away. And we want to, here's a little something for just doing the hard work. And so, yeah, there are years of work and commitment to making this all work before we have that amazing designation with our friends at Salesforce.
Oh, thanks for that, Mike. And I got to clarify my question that I basically implied, oh, you went into a meeting and you got it. And you have made it explicitly clear throughout this interview that the intentionality, both of how you present the importance of intentionality to your clients and also how you modeled intentionality. You said the word commitment at least 5 times in the answering of that question. The commitment was tethered to the intentionality that was tethered to the action of not going away. This wasn't just show up with a good pitch deck. This was absolutely demonstrated.
It was work. It was hard work. And it's just, like the community, the people with disabilities community, they deserve a true, equitable, accessible educational experience to future proofed technical opportunities. And I just knew doing all the research of all the blindness organizations, all the other professional with disability, 'cause, that's the unfortunate thing within disability, right? We're so siloed. Because even within blindness, there are all these different blindness groups. We only deal with this particular kind of blindness. We only deal, and then
Oh, yeah.
it just, and that same thing with other disabilities. And even though we're blind institute of technology, we are pan disability. Like we, again,
Nice.
we have completely served all a pan disability community. But we chose, and I'll just share this real quick. So Blind Institute of Technology. So why are you Blind Institute of Technology? So here's my claim to marketing fame. And here's the kind of nerd I am. Roy is within tech, right? Like a former computer programmer, network admin with Cisco. So I speak tech, I speak nerd. And even with today's AI crazed environment, everything ultimately breaks down to machine language. Machine language are bits and bytes. So a binary bit is a 0 and a 1, an off or an on. And I took that binary bit and created the acronym Blind Institute of Technology. I truly think that technology is the great equalizer. And that leads right back to audio description. Like accessible technology allows for an expanded market share for everybody.
Let's talk about that. Where do you see AD or accessibility headed in this ideal future? With let's I don't think it needs to be explicitly focused on AI. Where is that ideal future? Whether it's
Well,
using AI as a tool or let's I don't want to compartmentalize into AI. I want to keep it really open to this. What does that ideal future look like? And I think you've already really clearly answered it with the intentionality and the approach that you're giving. What else would you like to share with us?
it's a great question. Is there a place for AI in, call it, mass scalable AD? Yeah, I truly do. I think companies can leverage AI, especially again, let's say I'm an employee and name the tech company. There are decks that are being used every single day. So how do you at scale ensure that your decks and that sort of thing have AD where applicable, have the alt text where applicable, all that kind of stuff? That's a solution for AI to do that at scale, right?
Yeah.
I really don't want to see AI being the solution for video content because I do the actors. I don't think that AI is going to bring that human element. Again, like I think, and I don't know who did the AD for Mission Impossible, this latest, but I guarantee you that there were voice actors, there were scripts, there was all that other. It was brilliant. It was amazing, and it literally made me want to go because movies are not cheap anymore. And that came out, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I want to hear that again. I will spend my dollars again to Tom Cruise Productions because I enjoyed that so thoroughly. It's market share, and I don't think that for the video productions like that, the AI is a great solution. Just because I think you're not going to get that same human element.
We're really making that nuance distinction clear. And this ultimately goes back to what we first started talking about, the Gettysburg Address approach, that what I'm hearing you say is that AI can scale, but also making sure that the community itself is representing what the community wants. That this isn't being a force-fed sort of thing. That
Correct.
yeah, could we expand a little bit on that tie-in? And what is that impact of blind professionals on the AD space?
It's fascinating. Again, just like being intentional with your hiring. Right? So I don't see why you wouldn't want to include me in a solution that's for me.
Obvious when you put it like that. Yes.
I've heard about this women's groups and that sort of thing that are literally like women's organizations that have a CEO of a man, BIPOC, African American organizations that are led by a Caucasian individual. What are we thinking here? So to me, if we're talking about a service, a product that's for a specific community, be intentional. Bring us in, right?
Yeah.
It's being intentional with your hiring practices, right? So if you're trying to solve for somebody like me, include somebody like me in the solution.
It's so clear and so elegant. We've covered so much. Is there something that we haven't talked about yet that you'd like to share with our audience?
Hey, I love what you're doing, Roy. I really do. I think this is a great platform for small brands like us. Really appreciate the opportunity, Roy, to come in and share. Anybody of your listeners that are part of the broader disability community that are looking for accessible training into future proofed opportunities, our training is completely complementary. And we have resources to scale our apprenticeship program tremendously. We are a workforce development organization that is literally here for people with disabilities across the country. Thank you for that ability to share that.
If you have time for a postscript, Mike, I'd love to ask you about future proof. You slipped that in just now and also a few times throughout this episode. Could you expand a little bit on the importance of why that matters? It's pretty clear, but I'd love to hear your take on that. What is future proof?
Future proofed is the space of AI. So many folks are afraid of AI, right? Because they're hearing about being displaced because of AI and that sort of thing. The Salesforce platform, the Salesforce ecosystem, right? It is the largest AI platform on the planet. And so instead of being afraid of that, learn to actually deploy and utilize AI. And the way to do that is on the most digitally accessible business enterprise application on the planet. It is Salesforce. And so our training is going to future proof your career by having you become literally a technician within this AI space instead of being displaced by it.
Thanks for sharing that. How can we follow you on social media, websites, other ways that you'd be comfortable sharing public contact info?
Yeah, actually, so my personal email and phone number are on our website, blindinstituteoftechnology.org. So blindinstituteoftechnology.org. And yeah, I make myself ridiculously available, Roy. And I love it. I love hearing the community reach out to me from across the globe. It's like I work for them. I am a proxy to them.
Ah, great. Thanks so much for this, Mike. This has been wonderful to speak with you and hear your thoughts. And thank you for this.
Thank you, Roy, for the opportunity.